is October 9th, 2019, 6:30. I call this meeting to order and welcome you and thank you for coming. I like seeing a full crowd here. If you'll stand with me for a moment of silence. Thank you. If you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Chapin.
Here.
And Vice Mayor Kojin.
Here.
Counselor Davis.
Here.
Counselor Yank.
Present.
Counselor Lee.
Here.
Counselor Cormier.
Here.
Counselor Warner.
Excused. All right, we're going to try to move this meeting. We have a large agenda here. We're going to try to move it along. We're going to start with the priority list. Is there any discussion pertaining to City Council's strategic priorities? Okay, any discussion pertaining to City Councilors' individual priorities?
Mayor, I have two items. First, I'd like to thank Public Works for finishing our pickleball courts. They look very nice. They're getting a lot of use. I think that's a good amenity to the public. We appreciate stepping up at the end of last fiscal year and volunteering to get that done quickly. We appreciate that. And Parks found trash cans, nets, and benches for that, so we appreciate that. And it's going to be a great amenity to the community. Secondly, I want to make a plea to the council on doing something a little bit out of the box on public intoxication. It's one of the things on my priority list is to improve the community policing and family activities in our parks, and this kind of comes together. I recently was approached by a couple people. They thanked the council for funding the improvements in the park. The park looks great, John C. Park I'm referring to, but in the same breath they said we don't feel safe using the park. And so we had some discussion, and so I'm pleading to our police department and our legal team to get together with the courts and find a solution. I'm going to have a hard time moving forward putting additional monies in that park personally until we can find some solutions to improve the situation. It's a great park, it's a great amenity. I want to see the public feel safe to use it. Current situation is not that, in my opinion. I'd like to see it improved. So that's going to go on my priority list. I appreciate it.
In addition to the public intoxication, I know we have a really large problem on, like, in between the golf course and us, right behind these apartments here as well. So I think that could be helped too.
The golf course and where?
Is this Road Vista?
Yeah.
Yeah, those apartments right in front of us.
For the Vista apartment.
A lot of the times there's a whole, I guess, fort set up back there, and some people in the apartments have to clean it up pretty much every other week, so that they have an area where they can be in.
I recommend we put it on the agenda somewhere that we can talk about it like we're supposed to then. Future agenda.
Okay, we'll get that on our future agenda so we come up with a plan. Minutes.
Move to approve the minutes. Second.
Good.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes with those members present. The consent agenda. Consent portion of the agenda is a means to expedite routine matters that are acted on by council. All items must be done by one undebatable motion passed unanimously.
Move to approve the consent portion of the agenda.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes with those members present. Thank you. We have no public hearings. We're going to move to a hearing from the citizens. Members of the public may address the council on matters not on the agenda, but a reminder that council cannot take legal action on matters during call to the public. Someone would like to address the council? Carey.
Brian Carey, 1500 Westview Drive. I'm a member of the city's Economic Development Advisory Board as well as the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And I know it's on the agenda, but I do feel it's important to just make a brief mention about the railroad car issue. We've been privileged to have a couple of briefings at both of those committee meetings. And I was privileged to have a tour of the railroad car, and there's a real passion for that project. And I just urge the council to give this their best thoughts and put their minds to it. I know we're still working towards a cost estimate on moving that. When I think about Page, I think of 1956 it becoming a government work camp to construct the Glen Canyon Dam, population going back down until the early 70s when the Navajo Generating Station was approved, and we burst into real life, and that's been sustained and through this year. I'm not anti-railroad, but I don't think of Page as a railroad town. When I go up to Colorado, I've been on the Silverton Railroad a couple times. I've been up to Golden Spike to celebrate that railroad history. But my concern as we move forward is that we'll end up with a railroad car with a fence around it to prevent vandalism, and it perhaps not being the best way to spend the city's money on that. And I know it's risky to say that. There is a lot of passion, and there's a real need to commemorate and memorialize the men and women that built these huge projects. But when the council thinks about spending money on relocating the car, they really need to make it a holistic type of approach. If we're going to put it somewhere, for instance at Sage Avenue Park, which should be developed as a neighborhood park by the council-approved park master plan, let's look at the whole picture and make sure it fits in there and spend the appropriate amounts of money. If it's $250,000 to move the railroad car, then we better make sure we have enough money left over to really make it fit and do a proper job with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reports. I only have one report. Actually, it's an announcement. October being Domestic Violence Month, next Monday, the 14th, we'll be having a candlelight vigil at 6 p.m. at our memorial wall right out here, and we'll be reading a proclamation. So you're all invited to come to that on Monday, 6 p.m. That's my only announcement.
14th, right?
The 14th, Monday the 14th. Then we have a city manager's report.
Members of the council, we have staff attended a Coconino County Flood Control District meeting last week just to determine what they were looking at for the fiscal year 2020. There's a 22 cent tax rate per 100 for everyone in the county, including us. And quickly, all the funds that we saw in the presentation goes to the Flagstaff and Williams area for this year for drainage mitigation and reforestation due to the flood, the fires and the sheet flooding that's occurred from that. So all the money that we're going to we pay in property tax from this area will be down there for a while in that part of the county.
That's no surprise.
Yeah.
Boards and commissions, board liaison reports. We have one.
The
Parks
Parks
and
and Recreation Advisory Board met this Monday, and several things were discussed. Excuse me. We had the pleasure of having a presentation from Liz Krug. She is with Coconino County Parks and Recreation. They have their master plan draft update that they are looking for public comment on. It is on their website. We also discussed progress over at Grandview Knoll. If those in the audience and those who are watching haven't seen yet, there is a lot of activity, construction activity going on over there right now. They are currently in what would be considered phase 2 of phase 3. And right now the earthwork is done and it's just getting everything laid out. The features, the grading, everything's moving along nicely, but it's still going to be a while. Also, there was discussion regarding the Golliard Dog Park, and a gentleman here in the community has been kind enough to set up an in-kind water station for the dogs in the dog park. And so I believe Public Works is working with that person as well. Other than that, everything is looking good. Some safety issues were brought up for different parks, most notably the skate park and the children's park. And those are being discussed with Parks and Recreation and Public Works and hopefully the police department. And that's about it.
Any other liaison reports? Planning and zoning also met. There's an item on the agenda for that, so I'll wait till then. Talk about that. Okay, we're going to move on to. Before we get to the unfinished business, though, we're going to move because we're going to talk about 13.4 on new business because that might affect our unfinished business. Discussion and possible action by City Council pertaining to City Council meetings dates in November and December. Our meetings are the fourth Wednesday of the month, and that falls on November 27th and December 25th. Most communities either take a month off or take a month off during the summer. So I'm opening this up to discussion whether we want to move the meetings or we want to just cancel those meetings. And then if we have business, we can always hold a special meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I move to reschedule 2019 City Council meetings to November 13th, 27th, and December 11th and 25th, to November 6th and 20th, and December 4th and 18th. And then if we don't need them, we can cancel them later.
We have a motion.
I wonder if it's easier to go the other way. And not have December meetings unless we need them, then we can call a special meeting.
The motion dies for lack of a second. I'll take a second motion.
Make a motion to cancel December meetings. And if we need a special meeting, we can call one.
Just the December meetings?
December. Sorry.
Motion to cancel December's meeting. I will second that. Any further discussion?
All of December's meetings?
We need a special, if we need a meeting, we can call a special meeting.
Okay, I thought you just said the second. So you're saying all December meetings?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you just said the second meeting. Okay,
Want to withdraw your second on that?
I'll just vote differently now.
You call for discussion, because I want to discuss that.
Yep.
We do realize that we're bringing on a new city manager, so we're leaving him in the dark with 2 meetings in 3 months. That's probably not a good way to start off with. We can always cancel later, but we should schedule and keep him in the.
Okay, so I'm going to call for a vote on this one. It's to cancel all meetings in December. Is your motion, right?
Yeah. Unless you want me to withdraw, which
Well, we can just vote it down.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, I'll withdraw my second.
That's easy. That's easy.
Do you want to withdraw your?
So it just
first?
die. It doesn't have a second, it'll die.
Okay. That motion also dies.
I move to cancel the November 27th and the December 25th meetings.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is aye?
What?
Did you say aye?
Nah, I'm saying no.
Motion passes 5-1. Okay, so now that we know what dates we potentially have, we're going to move back to 12.1. Discussion possible action pertaining to minor general plan amendment, changing land use designation for parcels 801-18-065 and 801-18-066 from medium density residential to park open space to high density residential, resolution number 1233-19. We are still working with the developers and they have asked for a continuance on this zoning. They're still looking at documents. Tim, can you further?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Tim Swan, Community Development. So the applicant for the requested proposals have requested a continuance. They are currently under a due diligence process and currently have an active public records request. Our city attorney may have more information for you.
Yeah, we haven't, they've made a request for several documents from the city that we've pretty much got compiled, but we haven't provided to them yet. So they've asked that once they receive those, which tomorrow probably, hopefully we can send them out tomorrow. They've asked for about 4 weeks or so to be able to go through that and make sure, primarily they're interested in what was done back in 2006. And entitlements that were granted back in 2006. And then once they kind of have a better understanding of that, they may, well, they'll decide at that point how they want to move forward with their application. So staff's recommending that council table this matter until the December 11th meeting.
I move we table this matter until December 11th meeting.
Second.
Till the December?
December 11th.
So, I mean, we can't just deny it tonight and get it done with?
Well, it is on the agenda to take action, although staff is recommending that in light of the request and the documents that have been discovered, that we may want to wait until we have a full picture of where we're at, and they may withdraw their application once they know exactly what their entitlements are, or they may ask the council to, they may ask for a different action from the council. We don't really know, so I think it's probably a little premature to just deny it, but it is on the agenda, and you can take action if you desire.
Did somebody move to
Your
table
motion
it?
was for December, not November.
Correct.
December. Now, did I hear a second?
Yes.
Okay. Further discussion?
I don't think you can have discussion on a motion to table.
Motion, thank you. Motion to table. All in favor,
That's
say
legal
aye.
questions, but you
Aye.
can't have
Aye.
discussion.
Opposed?
No.
No.
4. Motion passes 4-2.
Okay.
Same thing. Discussion possible action.
Coaching and Cormier.
Discussion possible action pertaining to rezoning of parcel 801-18-065- and 801-18-066 planned development residential to multifamily residential. Ordinance number 660-19.
Move to table till the December 11th meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-2. Okay, we're moving on to new business. 13.1, Proclamation Domestic Violence Month. So we do have a proclamation. I'm just going to read I'll read the full thing on Monday, but I'm going to read the end that the Mayor and Council of City Council do hereby proclaim the month of October 2019 Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and encourage the City of Page residents to take opportunities to find out where we can each do to help stop the cycle of abuse in our community. Do we need we don't need a motion to accept the proclamation?
Yes, we do.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I move that we accept the proclamation.
Second.
Motion and second. There's just one little edit we're going to make to it, because there's two whereas were repeated. And then we'll get that proclamation out. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes with those members present. Thank you. All right. We should have moved your guys' presentation up before everyone left. 13.2, presentation by Page Hospital pertaining to Proposition 431 and the November 5th, 2019 election.
So, hello and thank you for having me. I'm Susan
Excuse me, can you
Eubanks.
get closer to the microphone?
Nope.
People can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? So, thank you for having me. I'm Susan Eubanks. I'm the CEO at Page Hospital, and I am here to
One moment.
to
Susan,
explain.
sorry. Hey, are these monitors on? Or do we have to turn them on individually? So we can see the presentation.
Are they on?
No, dark.
So I would like to explain what Proposition 431 is and entertain questions if you have them. So moving right in, Prop 431 is a tax levy that is in support of the hospital board and in fact the hospital itself. So way back when, in the 60s, the hospital was built to support the people that were here to build the dam. In 1970s, the Dam Bureau gave the hospital to the town, at which time the town paid well over $10 million to bring the hospital up to code, because nobody ever thought it was going to stay. So they brought the hospital up to code, and then not quite 10 years later, the town was, I think, very wise in, gosh, we don't really know what we're doing, and I'm not sure we really want to run a hospital. So they looked into what can we do, and I'm happy to say that the town council supported, and then the people of Page also supported creating a board that would run the hospital itself, as well as a tax that would support the hospital. Just about the same time, they made an arrangement with Samaritan Health Services back then, which has now become Banner. And so the hospital is leased by Banner to provide health care. However, the hospital itself and the grounds that it sits on, as well as the clinic next door, are owned by the Page board. the hospital board. And so we have been being taxed for that for all of these years since 1984. The tax is 1.17%, and it's the same as it was in 1984. We're not asking for an increase in tax, but it came to our attention last year that the laws have changed, the regulations have changed, and so now Coconino County and all of Arizona, in fact, require that hospital boards, clinic boards, whatever it is that your town is supporting, be required to go out and get votes to continue to support that every 5 years. So we haven't had a vote in a very long time, 1984, but we will have a vote every 5 years from now on. And that's kind of what I'm here to tell you about. Is there any questions? All of that money stays in Page. All of that money that's collected goes to the hospital board, and it is for capital items such as CT scanners. When they built the new ICU and the new ED, as well as upgrades in beds, upgrades in nurse call systems, the TVs that we have now that are not just TVs, they're also a way to communicate with staff and our patients. So all of that paid for by the board, not by Banner.
What would happen if you didn't get a vote for yes?
So eventually the tax will go away, and it will be, so the county told me that it probably takes about 1.5 years, because that's how long it takes for them to get anything done. And I don't mean like bad, that it takes that long to get done, but that because the tax is already in their budget for next year. So by the time the vote comes around, it's too late to take it off. And I will tell you, I'd be back here next year, or someone's going to be back here next year, because the reality is that we can't, the hospital itself would start to deteriorate over time. We have enough money to fix things right now, but that would not, it wouldn't sustain us. And the hospital is, 60 plus years old, and things break. Last year, no, I think it was earlier this year, like in the winter, we had a pipe break and froze everything, and we had a huge water problem, but we also had a huge problem with the fact that our patients and our staff were freezing. So I had to get that fixed, had to have a special group come up from Phoenix, and the board pays for all of that. So I'm very hopeful that we will be able to be successful in our vote, and that the people of Page and the people of the hospital district area will support us and recognize that we need this in our community. We are very, very lucky to have a hospital like we have. We have state-of-the-art equipment in a tiny little hospital that without our board and our tax, we would not be able to survive. I will tell you that because the plant is closing, we're already losing $500,000 in tax revenue. So that's just something that we have to deal with. But we're already behind where we would like to be.
So you don't think that the hospital would be successfully run if we don't approve the tax?
Pardon me?
You don't think that the hospital could successfully run if we don't approve the tax?
I don't. I truly don't believe that the hospital will. It could do that. I'm not going to lie. We have by the time the year's ending, we'll probably have about $9 million in the bank. That sounds like a lot until you realize that we're doing a remodel of our pharmacy so that it comes up to code, and it's $1.3 million. Nothing in a hospital is cheap. A bed costs about the same as a Mercedes-Benz. And we're not talking about an ICU bed. Talking about a bed in the regular med-surg area of the hospital. A new bassinet is about $30,000. And that's not, I mean, I don't know how to say it. It's incredibly expensive. I've been in this business for 30 plus years, and the first time I ever had to order a bed, I was down at Barrow, and it was like $15,000 back then. And I was like, oh my gosh, how can this be? And it's just continued in that same bin.
Sorry, one last question. If our hospital was to go away, what would be the nearest place for emergency care?
The nearest place for emergency care is Flagstaff, which is 124 miles, I think, or St. George, which is 132. They're almost exact, but about 8 miles difference.
Would that include childbirth?
That includes childbirth. There is Tuba City, but Tuba City only is only for Native Americans. They don't, and that includes any kind of an emergency. They don't have to let you in the door.
So when it says it's a mail-in ballot only, how does that work? How does that
It is a
distribute?
mail-in ballot only. So the ballots are coming out on the 15th, and so they'll be in your P.O. boxes. And then it's a prepaid, postage-paid return. So if you get it, you have until the 30th to mail it back. And then if you haven't mailed it back by the 30th, then we ask that you drop it off here. There'll be a ballot box here and another ballot box in Lachee.
So everybody will receive one even if you're not on the early ballot like you normally get the ballots in the mail?
If you don't receive one, they ask that you call.
Oh. Thank you.
And they say that can happen up until the last day. So you would have to call the day before, because they won't bring them with them if you don't know. But you would have to call.
Okay.
And I'm happy to answer any questions anytime. If you hear of people in the community that are confused, because it hasn't happened in so long, I think it's easy to be confused and say they must be going to increase taxes. I'm going to see an increase in my bill. They won't see an increase in their bill. It stays the same.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Can we watch the video?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, you guys had a nice little video.
So I will tell you that we've worked really hard. I'll come back. We've worked really hard to source everything locally. Even though Banner is funding this campaign, we have sourced everything that we possibly could. I think we've sourced everything but the Banner Facebook locally. So all of our flyers are printed locally. All of the yard signs, everything has been done locally that we can do. So that includes on our little video on our Facebook page, all of these people are local to my hospital, and one of my nurses actually took the video. Anyway, if you have a chance, if you could go to the Facebook page, it's really cute.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that presentation. I think this is really important for our community, so. Okay, 13.3, discussion and possible action pertaining to special events liquor license for Into the Grand for the 2019 Balloon Regatta Street Fair.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control application for a special event license for Into the Grand Balloon Regatta Vendor Fair.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes with those members present. Thank you. Thirteen point five, discussion possible action pertaining to a reappointment of Assistant City Magistrate Judge Lynn Hoffman to serve a 2-year term ending October 28th, 2021.
Move to approve the appointment of Assistant City Magistrate Judge Lynn Hoffman to serve a 2-year term ending October 28th, 2021.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes with those members present. This is the same thing, discussion and possible action pertaining to the reappointment. Who's this appointment? Oh, this appointment of Kevin Anderson, Assistant Magistrate Judge to Page Municipal Courts for a 2-year term ending October 9th, 2021.
Move to appoint Kevin Anderson as an Assistant City Magistrate Judge for the 2-year term ending October 9th, 2021.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes with those members present. 13.7, discussion and possible action pertaining to conditional use permit to allow watchman quarters on parcel 800-04-007 in a service commercial zoning district. This was on the P&Z's agenda, and it was approved by P&Z, but I'll let Tim further elaborate.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is for a conditional use permit for a watchman's quarters attached to a canine services facility here. You can see on the screen we have a layout of the floor plan, and in addition to that, we have the location overview here, which is on Poplar. It's 9 Poplar. We have some conditions of approval that are also in your packet, which is typical. We had some findings that the use of a night watchman's quarters will not adversely affect any of the surrounding area, and it is compatible with the use, which is service commercial. There was no negative comments received during this period. That does include a public hearing as well. Staff recommends approval with conditions, and the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously vote, which was 4-0 to recommend approval with conditions. Taking a little further look, there's conditions 10, 11, and 12. I recommend approval with conditions with the exception of 10, 11, 12, if the council's, if that may be the council's will. 10, 11, 12 are more zoning texts that already apply to the actual use of the facility. So in essence, they would be redundant. So approval with conditions with the exceptions of 11, or 10, 11, and 12 are my recommendations.
I move we approve the watchman's quarters with conditions except for 10, 11, and 12.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? I think it's a good idea to, I think we're all going to vote on this, but it's a good idea that we have someone, if we have animals there overnight, that we have someone on the property in case there's issues. So I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Number 8, discussion and possible action pertaining to donation request for engine 6006 and the coal hopper car and their transportation and relocation from Navajo Generating Station.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is in regard to the wonderful train that is, as well as the coal hopper car that is currently located at the Navajo Generating Station owned by the Salt River Project. The train was put in decommission in a decommission phase and was taken by a salvage company. We had approached, as the city approached the salvage company with the Salt River Project to possibly retain the coal hopper car as well as engine 6006 to memorialize NGS's time with us here in our community. So staff, under pressure with a timeline because the asset was already set to be decommissioned, had proceeded rather quickly in determining some locations for this locomotive and coal hopper car if it were to move forward. The top two locations that came forward were Sage Park, and you could actually see an engineered rendering here of what that could potentially look like. In the middle there, you see where the location of the engine as well as coal hopper car could be. You see to the left of that the potential basketball court or additional assets. This is a compatible use with a neighborhood park, being that neighborhood parks in essence provide identity to the community. This park, the backdrop of this park is the Navajo Generating Station, so it is fitting in this location. The second runner-up is location at the sports complex. There is a wide breadth of area where a locomotive of this size could be located, but Sage Park is staff's recommendation on location. A little bit more information. We did some value engineering. That top figure there of $85,000 is our engineering estimate of the cost of securing that train. So there are some soils, some engineering that has to be done to secure the train to its condition. Obviously, there's soils that are associated, but to reinforce and to secure that, as well as securing the outside perimeter with possibly ride iron fencing and security issues like that. You could see a number at below that, which is the train and park. So if we were going to do a full build of a park of similar fashion, that number is associated in I think nearly $1 million, I believe. And you could see the park only just as a reference point there. Any questions so far, members of the council, Mr. Mayor? No. We gathered some information as an economic impact. We worked with ECONA, which is the Economic Collaborative of Northern Arizona, to garner some additional information on what this could bring in terms of economic benefit to the city in terms of dollars and cents. Unfortunately, there wasn't any solid feedback onto that this could generate any sort of additional funds. Furthermore, we have Al Richmond, who's the chairman and CEO of the Arizona Railroad Heritage Park, who specializes in this, had a statement that you can see here that at the end of the day, this project and projects similar to this are about memorialization, and there's more to the dollars and cents that make sense here.
Mr. Mayor, this is an unbudgeted item, and I think we just need to not pursue this at all. I looked on, there's no less than 60 train museums, if you go online, and they all have like 15 generations of train and stuff like that that you could actually see. Nobody's going to come from anywhere and come see a train that called some coal one time to some plant that don't even exist anymore. That'd be a total waste of the city's money.
I agree, it's an expense when we have some other expenses we need to take care of, especially
My motion is to not
Simple.
pursue this any further.
So the last two slides here, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, are a rough cost estimate. We have not received input in terms of an official RFP, but 3 companies that we had solicited in terms of getting a ballpark number so as to not have a shock factor when we do receive, came in the range of $235,000 to $250,000, and that is transportation only, not including management overhead or any additional facets. The true total cost could be in excess of that. Obviously, contingency is a big portion, and there is a bridge where a lot of the contractors and transportation companies pose some concern about. The final piece here is staff is asking direction on how to proceed with this. SRP is looking for a commitment rather quickly from the city as to if we are going to pursue this endeavor in written format. Obviously, that's going to be subject to the final amount, but we do have a ballpark that's presented. So obviously, if the ballpark far well exceeds what we have here, then it may be inappropriate. But SRP has an understanding. Obviously, if we commit to this, we understand the ballpark that it could fall into. And finally, with the pieces of location, we're presenting Sage Park as the #1 option for location. Number 2 would be sports complex, or if there's another will of the council, what that may be. So leave that to you, Mr. Mayor, members
Are
of the
you
council.
still looking at other pieces for memorializing the power plant?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a motion to not pursue?
I still
There
have
was a
Motion
motion,
to not
yes.
pursue?
Yes.
Second?
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
Yeah, further discussion. Is there any expectation on SRP's, discussion with SRP to help memorialize what used to be their plant? Do they expect that from the city on some level, or do
We
we
could
know?
donate the Parrot Club, and we can memorialize that by putting in a swimming pool down there.
I guess I'm wondering, is this going to have an impact on that,
Yeah.
is where I'm headed.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, councilmen, at this point in time, it looked like, and I can give you assurance that the city staff and all city members here have pursued this with the intent, and obviously the intent is more than dollars and cents. Consideration of something like this with an economic impact that is pretty obvious that there isn't anything, of substance, that we care as a community about the impact of the Navajo Generating Station, period. To take it this far into obviously serious consideration, I believe that shows a statement. I've worked very closely with SRP currently, as well as in history as well, too. So I don't see that, although we don't pursue this, that would have any negative ramifications at this point.
Have you had any discussions with SRP in relations to expectations?
On this one or SRP, or on the Parrot Club or on
Either.
the train?
Well, as of now, this one.
If I was a betting man, I'd bet that well, that's not on the agenda. We'll stick to this. We have a motion in a second. Any further discussion?
Let's call for the question.
All in the motion to discontinue pursuing this train, say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously with those present. Thanks for all your work on that. Motion and possible discussion pertaining to zoning code text amendment ordinance number 661-19. Clerk, please introduce.
An ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Page, Coconino County, Arizona, amending the city of Page zoning ordinance in the Page Code of Ordinances 152057, excuse me, landscape, walls, and screening.
Move to adopt ordinance number 661-19.
Second.
Motion is second. This was also unanimously approved by planning and zoning. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Discussion possible action pertaining to proposal for lease agreement for police vehicles for the Page Police Department. I believe we have a PowerPoint. And I would just like to note that I saw a police Tahoe on a transport being towed this morning, so besides the fact that it's a Chevy, I don't think we should have our police cars being towed into town.
Well, it seems to be an ongoing occurrence for us, so. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My pleasure to discuss with you this evening the condition of our police fleet. Now, when I'm talking about our police fleet in this context, I'm only talking about vehicles that are driven by our sworn police officers. There we go. All right, this is our current condition. We currently have 22 vehicles assigned to sworn officers. The average age of that fleet is 9.91 years old. That's including the new 2019 that we have. Our current fleet is for the most part pretty dilapidated. It's very unreliable. Just as the mayor pointed out, that's a very common occurrence for us. Honestly, right now, only 4 of our 22 vehicles are reliable enough to keep beyond about 2 to 5 years. Right now, this problem is actually exacerbated because we run what's called hot cars, which means many of them are running 24 hours a day, which just accelerates their life expectancy on there. And especially during the hot summertime, when we're trying to keep those vehicles cool so we can keep our equipment in there running, namely our computers and so on, it really causes a lot of problems. It's increasingly detrimental during the summer months. Now, right now, talking about our need for replacement, our city garage currently uses a fleet management system that assigns a score based upon certain factors such as age, mileage, the class of the vehicle, the emergency vehicle rating, and maintenance and repair costs. And I'll asterisk the maintenance repair costs because I'm going to talk about what's going on with our fleet on that in just a minute. Now, with the exception of those 4 reliable vehicles, the average score of all those on a 0 to 25 scale is 22.03. So right now, we're in need immediately, frankly, of 13 vehicles. But to make it manageable...
isn't the best.
Pardon me?
So 25 isn't the best.
No, 25 is the worst. It's kind of like golf in this respect. So the higher score, the worse. So anyway, we realize that 13 is a little out of reach for us right now, so we broke it down into another category of not only immediate but critical. We have 6 vehicles right now that are absolutely in critical need of being replaced. One of those is the one the mayor saw being carted off today. And then from that, we have another 7 vehicles that are in the immediate category that we're hoping to get replaced next year. So here's a chart, and that shows it on your screen there exactly what we're looking at, how we segmented those out. This is a list of all of our vehicles. The blue in this case is either investigative or administration vehicles. So notice that none of those are in the critical file, but several are in the immediate. But in the critical ones, these are ones that we just can't keep on the road. We partially participated in a small event this afternoon where we parked a car around front of the public safety building, and guess what? It broke down before we could even drive it back around behind. So that's what we're up against. Now, talking about current cost of repairs, I took just the critical and the immediates and figured out what we spent last fiscal year and then year-to-date this fiscal year. And by the way, this is out of date already, just as we wrote it, i.e. some of the repairs we're doing now. But combined, we've spent $28,202.29 on repairs that's just going down a rat hole that we are never getting back. So let's talk about the effects on operations. Right now, the bottom line on all this is we're having a hard time getting cops to calls. We're seeing it over and over and over again. Here are some examples. Right now, when officers show up, even though because we're running hot cars, sometimes it takes them trying 2 or 3 other cars before they can find a car that they can start their shift in. We're finding them that they're breaking down regularly on calls for service, and I believe that's probably what happened with the Tahoe today. It was out on a call for service, and it broke down. This leaves officers stranded, unable to respond to other calls for service, unable to back up other officers, and there's been many close calls where our officers are just not able to respond to help other officers or residents in their time of need just because they're broken down. There's several examples of breakdowns during response to crimes in progress, where officers have not been able to respond just because they're broken down again. Excuse me. We also have examples where our condition of our fleet has broken down and paralyzed an entire patrol shift on occasion. What has happened in the past is, and I'll just use one example down at the Shell gas station down there where our officer was down there fueling up. A crime occurred that was reported to him right there that was in progress. He got in his car to try to respond to that and deal with that problem, and his car broke down. So he calls for another officer, come and help me with this. That other officer responds, he tries to respond to it, guess what? His car broke down, which caused another officer to come down there to try to deal with this. Now we have 3 cops, 1 operational car, and a crime in progress is frankly just going away. That is just a brazen example, but that sort of thing does happen regularly. Right now, there are several examples that we can point to of critical incidents where officers have been in need of backup. One of them just happened a week or so ago over in John C. Page Park, where a female officer had a violent suspect she needed to use a taser on that individual. The guy still wasn't responding, and she was there stuck, and as the other officer, in fact, it was that Tahoe, the other officer was driving, trying to help and get there, broke down on him. So she's left on her own, and in her time of need. And that happens over and over again. Another example was at our hospital over here, where 2 female officers were fighting with a suspect, and a similar incident, they needed more officers to come there, and sure enough, that third officer's car broke down. We also had a recent event where an officer transporting a juvenile to Flagstaff in the middle of the night, while driving to Flagstaff, his car literally caught on fire. He had to pull to the side of the road. Luckily, he was able to get the juvenile out. The officer was able to escape, and he was able to get the fire put out, thank goodness, without starting a forest fire as well. But that, again, resulted in a costly repair and certainly a costly toll right back to Page. We also have many incidents where, over and over again, our cars are breaking down, and it's always at the worst possible moment, it seems. So when we're talking about vehicles, here's some other considerations on the direction we are proposing to you. Right now, we're having trouble just with the number of cars we have, especially the operational numbers of cars we have. When it comes to call-outs, for instance, something more critical will happen, and we're needed to call out other officers. A lot of times they're stuck at the station, or we can't get them to respond properly because they don't have a car to respond in this operating. The other problem we're having is just when calls are spanning operational periods. For instance, on the 2 instances we've had the child homicide earlier this year, and then we just had an incident not too long ago that involved a similar sort of situation. We spanned operational periods, which means that spans shifts, which means that during both of those incidences, our officers were double and even tripled up in cars and trying to get them to not only deal with the problem we had, but deal with the calls that were occurring on the road at the time. It's not efficient, and it's just paralyzing us. Also, we're having to deal with, special details. We have different community events where officers are required out there, but oftentimes we're having to tell them no, sometimes because of our vehicle situation. We just don't have something to put them in. Then I wanted to talk to you just briefly about the necessity to move into 4-wheel drive vehicles. We live in Page, Arizona. It's kind of, 4-wheel drive country here. And we have a lot of instances where we're not able to respond, especially out into the desert and so on, where we're needed at times. Cars get stuck and or otherwise not able to respond. Also during cold weather incidents here, especially on the north access down here, and then trying to get out of our own parking lot if it's icy at all. Our 2-wheel drive vehicles, Crown Victorias, just are not good in the snow anyway. And then also regarding 4-wheel drive vehicles, it gives us an additional capability to respond to emergency events such as flooding or an off-airport aircraft crash, items of that nature. So before I move forward, I just want to be very, very clear. I'm just trying to paint the picture for you. I am not intending to present you a Hobson's choice where you have to feel like you have to go with us. I'm just trying to give you a very clear picture of what we're really up against. Now let's talk about our budget. Right now, we are budgeted for $71,800 for a replacement vehicle. This is actually just slightly high, only because we were able to find a vendor for our upfitting and stuff that saved us about $10,000 or more on that. So this is just slightly high for now. But this is only for one vehicle. That's all it'll get us. And although it's better than zero, it's not going to move the needle for us. It's not going to get us the help that we need. As such, I'd like to propose to you that we lease our vehicles instead of purchasing. And when I talk about leasing our vehicles, I'm talking a lease to own. So at the end of, after doing all the calculations and so on, it appears that a 48-month lease is the best for us, but it's basically a car payment to where in the end we pay $1 and now we own those vehicles. And that will help not only our current situation, but moving forward, it'll help the rest of the city and our civilian vehicles and specialty vehicles that we need to replace as well over time. Right now, with the help of the Finance Department, we looked at several other government agencies and what they're doing for leasing vehicles and got some information on financial institutions they're using. Right now, we can lease several vehicles for the price of buying one right out now. This does, however, require a year-over-year commitment by council, and we have obtained 5 quotes, and comparing to what other cities are doing and so on, this is what we came up with. And I did give you a handout on this earlier so that you can see the numbers much easier. But out of the 5 quotes, it appears that Kansas State Bank is the cheapest and will meet our needs the best, and sides with the cheapest interest rate that's being offered.
This 15,000 annually, is that for 4 vehicles or 6?
That's for one vehicle. That's per vehicle.
Oh, per vehicle.
Yeah. And then this just breaks it down a little bit more on the next slide here, where it talks about actual acquisition cost, and understand that that's the vehicle plus the upfit of police equipment in there.
So what would be the benefits of leasing a vehicle other than just the financial costs that we pay up front?
Just spreading that cost out over time is what it would be. So in the end, we could lease or get up to 20 vehicles that we'll lease for a maximum cost of about, and I've got it on my last slide, it's about $305,000 versus were we to buy those outright, you're looking closer to $1 million.
So the leasing company was here a while back, and of course they showed us that leasing police cars doesn't work. But for us to go out and lease them with the purchase, that makes sense, because we do need to upgrade our fleet. And so we need to kind of work this into the budget and plan ahead and start replacing the fleet with, and I think as long as we do a lease purchase and not that leasing program where makes sense.
We don't own anything at the end.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what was proposed by Enterprise earlier this year, yes. And when they talk about it doesn't work real well for police, what they're really saying is it doesn't work real well for them with police because they're not white fleet vehicles.
And there's no savings to us
Right.
because we don't have the highway miles, so that's what they were basing theirs on, how much we're going to save on gas mileage and that kind of crap. Well, we don't have that. So, but to lease purchase them, we can afford to do that, where we can afford to go out and replace our fleet, which should have been economically replaced before we reach this point.
Kind of like roads.
Yeah, agreed. And so on my last slide here, it talks about how much it's going to cost us year over year. You'll note that, what about my glasses on for this one? For this year, we really can't expect actual delivery of the vehicles before about April, maybe May. By the time they are delivered to our upfitting company and then they have time to upfit them, it's most likely, very realistically, going to be April or May. Therefore, we really only have 2, maybe 3 months of payment in the current fiscal year. Therefore, assuming 3 months per vehicle, we're looking at $22,903 for the current fiscal year, which is a savings of roughly $50,000 this year. And then next year, and I've got that on this slide that I gave you, how much that will cost year over year, but for 7 vehicles, next year we're looking at 106, almost 107,000, 76,000 the year after that for 5 vehicles, and then it'd only be 30,000 for the final 2 vehicles on that, and then after that, 91,000 would drop off and so on. So, any other questions?
These are, these Ford F-150s you're mainly going to, or?
Yeah, they are Ford F-150s. There's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, they hold together a lot better. A truck just holds together longer. Their resale value is higher in the end. We can get much more out of them were we to sell them. We have a Ford dealership right here in town that can handle most of our warranty costs on that. and they're just good, reliable vehicles. They do what we need to do. A lot of police agencies are running these now.
Yeah, because that question came from your grid earlier had, I think it was on the bottom, one of your critical vehicles had 47,000 miles. I believe it was a Tahoe on it. Why would that be critical? Just curious.
Yeah, well, that is the one that the mayor saw carted off today. That vehicle is just flat out a lemon, and it breaks down constantly. We found the sergeant that drives that found metal shavings in the oil. I think it was less than a month ago. GM has fought us on this thing tooth and nail. It is just a train wreck. It's just to the point, just like what was seen today, that thing being towed around. That's kind of is being towed more than is on the road.
I guess begs the question, are you more comfortable with Ford versus GM? Because it's an important decision when you go to lease. It's a long-term commitment to flip the fleet. So
Yep.
have you had better experience with Ford over GM, or is that just a one-off?
Well, I personally had used Fords in my career for decades now, and we've always had a good experience, but we've always had the Crown Victorias and then a lot of F-150s. But the biggest compelling factor on all this is they're both good products, but we have a Ford dealership in town that we can, take to, and that convenience factor alone means a lot.
That
What are you
that
looking
was
for?
what drove last year's purchase of the F-150 as opposed to a Tahoe, because warranty work was here instead of putting an officer or
Flagstaff
somebody
or
and down going to Flagstaff
Yeah,
to
sure, that makes sense.
spend a whole day getting the maintenance or
Are those
Two.
single cabs?
dual cab.
Well, it's a
Crew cab.
crew cab, it'd
With a
be the 4
5-foot
doors. Pardon me?
With a 5-foot bed.
Yeah, it's not very long, but for our purposes, it works pretty well. So, but it's nice to patronize those ones. The other good thing we've got going for us is the upfitting company we're using in Salt Lake City. If we have, especially we have several vehicles, were something to break down in that equipment, they will actually send people to us. We're not sending people all the way up to Salt Lake City or to Phoenix, and is the other option here, so.
How much are you looking for tonight?
I'm looking for authorization to spend $22,903.92 out of the current budget, and then the ongoing commitment year over year, which is presented in the, as I gave you.
So how many cars will that get?
The 22,000 will get us 6 cars, for 3 months of the current fiscal year. But next year, we will need $91,615.68 for that same 6 vehicles, and then for the 2 years beyond that. And then we'll, if getting into the 7 vehicles beyond that, we need, ultimately by year 4, we'll need $305,000.
What's the cost differential, without me going through all your sheets, of end of lease total payments versus purchase? What's the difference?
Versus just flat out purchasing them? Nothing, you're just spreading them out. And what they're getting, you're just spreading them out with a car payment, we're paying 3.85%.
You got a $65,000 truck outfitted.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Versus the lease. What's the lease on that $65,000?
Yeah, we actually save a little money on it.
I think, Linda, do you have figures on that?
Yeah, I actually did calculate that out. It comes to about 61,000. So the acquisition cost is actually 57 and change, whatever, or what is that?
Yeah, it was 57 and change, so you're saying 61 to lease, 57 to buy?
Yeah,
So it's a $4,000 to carry the note 4 years.
right,
That's a no-brainer.
yep.
Yeah.
Are the trucks that you're looking at, are they four-wheel drive?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing we would do is we've worked with the city fleet manager, and there's one change that we would get. Normally, these come with the EcoBoost engine. It's a twin-turbo system, where our garage is asking us to get, there's another V8 option that's easier to work on, will last longer in our circumstances.
So these will not be the Pursuit package F-150?
No, the only thing that'll be different is that engine, the suspension, the electrical system, all that will be the same. It's just that engine won't have the twin turbo in it. But I can tell you from my previous experience that You know, the mechanics tend to balk at that a little bit. It's a little scary is what those are to maintain. I know the turbos, if my information is correct, is $1,700 per, and where we have to idle a lot and everything, that's not good for a turbo system, I'm told.
But the turbo doesn't crank out when you're just sitting there idling.
I'll have to defer to the mechanics on that one.
In a town of 25 and 30 mile an hour speed zones, it's hard to utilize a turbo, I would think, on a V8, so I think simple is probably smart in this case.
Yeah, I mean, the V8 will more than do the job for us. It'll be just
I move to
fine.
approve the lease of these initial vehicles, and anything beyond that would have to be approved in next year's budget.
Second. Six vehicles and Kansas State Bank.
So one more question, you're comfortable with flipping the fleet to an entire lease fleet, or are you thinking about part ownership and part lease?
No, we're looking at all ownership right now, and it's doubly helpful in that at the end of that 4 years, we can look at condition, and a couple things can happen. Number one, I would like to move to where we're getting back into a car per officer situation. Right now, where we have a major critical incident, a major emergency and stuff, we're still hobbled. So I'd like to fix that over time and have it fix itself. Secondly, we can help out other departments with some of those older police vehicles that are not good for law enforcement, but good for other applications, and fixing up and rotating out our old specialty vehicles for prisoner transports and for the range and so on like that.
Okay.
So it fixes itself.
Did you second?
I did. I just did an interest calculator on the amount over 4 years, and it was $7,800 for interest. But that's just a basic interest calculator. I don't know if it changes.
The rate from the bank is 3.4.
Yeah, that's what I used.
Oh, okay. Oh, the amount. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes with those present.
Go get your 6 vehicles.
Thank you.
.11 in new business and discussion possible action pertaining to apron reconstruction project at Page Airport, change order number 1 in the amount of $26,075.
Mayor, members of the council, after some complaints regarding the night work that we were doing at the airport and adjacent neighborhoods, I made a decision and recommended to Kyle, directed him to move everything to the day for the first phase. In this first phase, there's 5 phases to this project. The first phase will go up until, next couple weeks will be completed. Then it will go on a hiatus until the next 4 phases will come in the spring of 2020 to start the rest of it. It's a $26,000 change order to do that for the daytime, where we're dealing with the fixed base operators out there at the airport rather than the adjacent residents that are there listening to the OSHA beeps on the loaders and the idle dieseling of the engines, as well as the lights are on all night long that are affecting the adjacent neighborhoods. So it was my recommendation to do this, for Kyle to give the presentation.
Thank you, Manager. Good evening, Mayor, members of the Page City Council. As City Manager Buchanan explained, we are in Phase 1 of our apron reconstruction project at the Page Municipal Airport. To give you a sense of context, this is the area adjacent east of the terminal where the Contour secure box is located, where Grand Canyon Scenic Airways parks their aircraft, and then we have some larger heavy aircraft, general aviation parking in that area. So in terms of what we've done logistics-wise is we've had to shuffle that equipment and that use to the north apron. And in such, because of our initial thoughts on the project were how do we reduce the impact to the airport and reduce the impact to the surrounding neighborhoods. And that option was designed in there was to run at night for several factors. One, the school zone immediately adjacent to the airport on 17th Avenue. That's the haul route for vehicles and trucks to come in and bring in materials and to bring in equipment. when we hit the paving phase, which will start next week, there'll be between 20 and 40 trucks passing through that school zone every day for 5 days when we do the paving. Additionally, as the city manager mentioned, when we plan the haul route crosses runway 725, the RPZ of 725 as well, and that runway, due to lack of lights, is naturally closed in the evening, and so that allowed the contractor to haul across that runway unimpeded due to flight operations or anything like that. Again, most of the tour activity happens during the day. Passengers for Contour, the biggest travel time is the inbound flights in the morning and the outbound flight in the afternoon. The evening flight is relatively low impact. So with that, that's how we worked with the engineers and designed that project to go at night to reduce the impact, initially to the community. One of the things that we've looked at this time and that this change order incurs is a change of the haul route. We're going directly north of the apron through the helipad area, crossing the active apron in 2 locations. We've closed down runway 725 to daily operations because that also includes the haul route as the trucks head west, and then they have to cross the RPZ. So we, in terms of completely closed down runway 725, partial taxiway C as well. With that, we've, in discussing the safety concerns, we've had to add, basically, if you call them crossing guards, contractor staff at those 2 crossings for the apron. We've added additional lighted barricades that close runway 725 and the associated partial taxiway Charlie. So that when you look at the breakdown here, you're looking at about $1,150 in labor per day. And for this phase, we had 5 weeks included in this phase. It's roughly 30 calendar days. At the time of the change, we were 4 days into the project. So this reflects 16 days of work to be done. We've gone 2 weeks now in operations during the day, and so we have 2 more weeks, approximately 8 days left to continue this phase.
So if they're playing the flaggers $500 a day, I want that job.
And it's prevailing wage, yes. I think a lot of people want that job. So and I do want to mention that this is just for phase 1. We're going to see this possible change come with the next 3 phases as we continue the daytime work. So what's before you is a request to approve the change order for the amount of $26,075 for the first phase.
What's the other 2 phases going to
3
add?
phases.
3 phases, what are they going to add?
They run about 30 days each, so we would see in about $26,000 per phase. So we're looking at $125,000 to possibly $140,000 in costs.
Which may or may not be reimbursed by FAA.
Correct. And so we haven't heard back. We've had several inquiries into the ADO office in Phoenix to see if we can include these costs. They generally do not allow the grants to include, just kind of, what we do in normal bids. You'll have 5 or 10% contingency. The FAA doesn't allow it. They want to know what that contingency is going to. So if you can associate that with a unit cost, a tonnage or yardage of materials, and that goes over better with them. To just have an administrative contingency line, they don't allow. However, for this one phase, one option we looked at is that we do have built in about $30,000 in city administrative reimbursable costs from the FAA. And that generally goes to cover some of the paperwork and things that's associated with, certified payroll and reimbursement applications that come into finance. We do have that funding available that we could apply, but we're still kind of in limbo as if we can do that for the FAA. But that would only cover one phase, and then that money's spent.
I'd like to thank you for bringing this option to us. I do have a problem. It's going to cost over $130,000.
Yeah. We can't afford
And going
that.
through a school zone.
We're going to have to go back to night work.
This is the cost of doing improvements to our airport, and so
Yeah.
I don't.
And our contingency isn't that great in this current budget, and we're going to have to go back to night work and explain to the neighbors that
It's the cost of doing business.
Now, as the city manager mentioned, this particular phase, when it's completed, we will shut down for the winter, basically due to paving temperatures, and then we'll begin again end of March first part of
Did you
April.
say you've already done 2 weeks during the day?
What's that?
You've already done 2 weeks during
We've
the
done
day?
2 weeks of day work, so we're 3 weeks into this 5-week phase. And the contractor is running on schedule. So we anticipate the work to be done on time.
So if they don't approve it, we'll go back to night work on Monday.
Correct. We will owe the contractor for this 8
It'll be
days.
over before they know it.
Do we need a motion to not approve it, or could we just, it could just die?
Take no action.
Does anyone want to make a motion to spend that money? Okay, we're gonna move on then.
Thank you.
We have no bid awards. We're moving on to departments. 15.1, discussion possible action pertaining to the Northern Arizona Council of Governments Head Start Agreement.
Good evening, Mayor Tappan, councilors. First of all, I want to say it was nice seeing you out on the pickleball courts last night, Mayor. We had quite a crowd. That was nice to see.
I took a picture. It was quite the crowd.
Yeah, we actually had all 4 courts, and we had people waiting to shift in, so that was nice to see. I'm here tonight to ask you all to approve the next year's agreement with our Head Start division of NACOG. Currently, our community center is cooking the meals for the local Head Start division, and it is up for renewal at this time. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll keep on cooking for the kids.
Move to approve the standard agreement to provide food services to NACOG Head Start from October 1st, 2019 through September 30th, 2020.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes with those members present.
Thank you.
15.2, discussion pertaining to a new F-450 regular cab and chassis for Public Works Department.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Page City Council.
There's your 27,000.
Oh, yeah, I think
Exactly.
there's a bit of a typo in the recommended motion.
Let me back to my notes here. What you have before you is a request to purchase a 2019 F-450 XL regular cab extended chassis to replace the cab and chassis on our current bucket truck for the building maintenance department. If you give me just a moment while my information loads here. This chassis will be replacing an older truck that is approximately 22 years old. It's an F-450. It's a diesel vehicle. We have the opposite issue as the PD. We have these older vehicles with very low miles, but we've been seeing an increase in maintenance to this vehicle. Again, it's been unreliable for us here lately, and we use it for all manners of work within the city. One of the things that you'll see it, that you haven't seen it lately, but it does the banners across Main Street. We replace a lot of our parking lights that are not included in our agreement with PUE. And generally it's a heavily used vehicle, and we've just run into a lot of problems with the diesel portion of it. If anyone's ever owned a vehicle and been frustrated that they'd have to plug their vehicle in the summertime for the glow plugs to work, we're at that state where it constantly has to be plugged in. We've done glow plug relays. We've spent the money and the time on the truck, and it's at this point it's ready to go. This truck was also slated in kind of our capital outlay 5 years ago to be replaced at this time. We did some shopping around. This will be purchased under state contract, but we were able to find a 2019, which means it's in the yard at Sanderson Ford for us to pick up and have delivered within the week, pending approval from City Council. It's not an ordered vehicle, so we save about $4,000 in costs on that as well.
Yeah, I moved to approve the purchase of the 2019 Ford F-250 regular cab chassis from Sanderson Ford for $27,831.27.
Second.
So I think it's the motion was, it's 37.
It should be 37,000.
Wrong. It's 37.
Your motion to 37. Instead of 27.
37,831.
Just take 10,000 out of his check.
Not much left anyways.
Okay.
I'm second the amended one.
Okay. Amended motion for $37,831.27. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously with those present. Thank you. Discussion possible action pertaining to City Hall lobby security remodel.
Once again, so what you have before you, Mayor and members of the council, is an item on the agenda for mainly discussion and looking for some direction from the council. In fiscal year 2019, which is the last fiscal year, Public Works, specifically the Building Maintenance Department, was approached by the city manager to come up with designs and begin a small remodel project, if you will, of the lobby here at City Hall. One of the things was to kind of contain some of the public from just wandering, liberally through the building. We put together some quick costs. Under the direction of the city manager, we made some purchases of framing materials and drywall, and we're kind of gearing up to get that project underway. In discussion with some of the other departments, the issue came up of if we're doing this, let's look at maybe a ballistics option, similar to what the magistrate court's project is being completed right now. So in that, we went and contacted vendors and worked with some security firms that provide Kevlar paneling, point of sale windows, and bulletproof doors. And one of the things that we pulled together and we got the information from them is an amount of about $20,000, just under $21,000 to provide about 44 lineal feet of ballistic wall paneling, 2 point of sale windows, one to replace the current cashier window and then one to add to the new or the current community development personnel staff that's located in the lobby. This also includes costs for a level 3 ballistic door. Everything's level 3, and basically that's the equivalent of protecting against a 44 mag round shot at close range. So I'm free to answer any questions as best as I know. We did have discussions with the PD in terms of this and kind of getting their feel and their pulse of why we're looking at this direction, but again brought it towards council to get some to have discussion and get some direction.
Is this level 3 or level 3A? Level 3 is rifle.
This is level 3. This is level 3.
What I read in the report, it reflects 3A.
It's 3A.
There may be a typo.
There may be a typo, yes.
Yeah. Anyway,
Because
it looks like
lists handgun ammunition.
It's like a handgun report on the ballistics. But anyway, I see it as there's 2 pieces to this. There's one, preventing the public from wandering through the building by having an entrance that's contained, and then the secondary door going into the city hall. I see that as one piece is very important personally. The second piece being the ballistic option. I'd like to discuss those separately. I think they're 2 different things to consider.
I think that he's coming here for the ballistic option of it.
But they're not actually. This is not part of an overall security, comprehensive security
Master plan.
No,
plan,
it
is
is not. This is just one aspect of securing this facility.
Okay. We should probably look at putting together an overall security master plan and phase it out.
I mean, the ballistic panels would go on the cashier's window, obviously, area, currently, right?
Correct. So it would be creating 3 walls of ballistic security. On the existing cashier, 1 creating a corridor hallway for staff to bypass, and then 1 on the new cashier window.
But it doesn't box the public out of walking right through City Hall.
No, it does. It does. So this creates a 3-sided bowl, if you will.
Do we have a diagram of something?
Yes, in your, let's see, should have been some additions. I apologize if they're not, we did have some renderings of the, I apologize, they did not get included.
Yeah. So, see if you can describe how the public would be
yes,
stopped at the
when
front
you
area.
walk into City Hall, you have, right now, you have our cashier on the right. You have an open space. So when you walk in, you will maintain the cashier on the right with a new point-of-sale window, ballistics window. Directly in front of you will be a wall that extends about 16 feet wide, and then to your left would be a return wall back into the wall. So you will walk into a lobby, a three-walled lobby with the glass doors behind you. In that wall to your left, you'll have another cashier window, which is really community development. Administrative assistant would be there to interact with the public, take plans, direct them, make the phone calls to staff requests.
What's the approximate cost of doing that in a non-ballistic fashion?
A non-ballistic fashion, about $7,000, $8,000. And we've already acquired most of those materials. We have them over in Public Works. We have drywall and steel framing that was.
I think that's long overdue, at least corridoring the public in a contained area. I think that's way overdue here. I don't know how you guys feel about ballistics, but I think it's two different topics.
If they're going to put in the one little room, it would be, better for us to put in the ballistics while we're putting in the room rather than put in the room and then decide about the ballistics, tear it all down, and then redo it. So if you wanted to look at it further and wait to put in the three-walled.
See, and the three walls don't work because it's not addressing other security issues for the cashier. Some major, major security issues for that cashier.
Well, she'd have the ballistic window, her whole wall would be done, and then the only thing that wouldn't be protected would be the door on the way out, correct?
And the window in the finance office that faces the parking lot, along with the non-existent door from the finance office into that cashier's office.
There are some exterior concerns, security and safety concerns throughout this building.
So if we're going to
So
do
the
it, we
question
should
is-
do it the right way.
Do we want to complete building master plan before we start building?
Oh, thank you.
There we go.
So Tim Swan created these and did a lovely, quick job of emailing them to our IT guys, put them up. So this is one rendering. We actually have a rendering where that window, it would not be that size. It would be about 5 foot in width and actually be set back because we have some conditions with the automatic windows. So that one right there, if you'd hold right there, please, Kane, that would be a better representative of what we're looking at.
If we're going to add this public area in, I'd rather add it with the ballistics instead of having to tear it down later and then put ballistics in.
Yeah, I'd rather do this the right way. We've already had a security expert do a complete walkthrough a couple of years ago with Chief Balcom and Mayor Dyack, or former Mayor Dyack, and went through, identified the security issues. We probably should get staff to work with that security expert, if at all possible, along with the fire department and the police department, to ensure we're doing this the right way, and let's phase this in.
Are you comfortable with this lobby being permanent to your future security plans? In other words, if we do this, we're going to have to change anything on this?
No, not necessarily. That window that you see there, give or take dimensions, we actually already own. That was ordered as part of our original non-ballistic specified lobby remodel. So in reality, the largest cost, the panels themselves are actually designed either to be done at new construction or they can be part of a remodel. They can just be attached to the existing drywall. Then you go over with a 1/4-inch drywall, tape texture, and paint. So that gets lost. The major aspect that Councilor Davis mentioned is we would have to tear out both windows as they sit now, do some framing, and reinstall or install the new ballistic point of sales.
Is this a budgeted item?
The ballistic aspect, no. The other framing drywall, that was already budgeted and spent in the fiscal year 19. So we're about, if you want to make this a ballistic corridor, we're 30% the way there in cost, but in reality, we're about 80% the way there in materials. So we could put this together with staff as depicted on the drawings without the ballistic materials at just, staff time cost.
I'm not sure what we're working towards, but in my 20 years on council, I've never been accosted by the public. I have been accosted by staff, though.
Is that here at City Hall?
So you're saying the ballistic should be on the other side, is that what?
Mayor, members of the council, we certainly need to do this. One thing that I hold true and one thing I value is employee safety. And there has been issues recently with this. But I also agree with Councilmember Lee, we need to do a whole master plan of this facility to make it secure. So we need to take that SEPTED plan that was done, I think, in 2017.
I believe so.
I think it was 2017 or early 2018. I remember seeing it last summer on that. And take a hard look at these other entrances that we have and find out what we need to do there as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unbudgeted item. I needed it to come to the council, so I asked Kyle to put it on the agenda for council discussion. So I do recommend we do look at this first phase of it. But we also need to come back to the council with what the costs are going to be for another review of the rest of the building.
How far are we into our contingency already this year?
What?
Put her on the spot.
Not very far yet.
Yet.
See, I agree with this first part. I think that kind of an isolation thing, so you can kind of assess somebody whether they're a threat or not for the protection of our employees is.
Okay, I have a question. Does this address this side door and that hallway?
No.
This particular door here,
Mm-hmm.
this door stays locked during,
It does.
yeah, it's only open when we have meetings in this end of the building.
But meetings at this end of the building includes meetings in that conference room because during the middle of the day, I have walked in through that door.
Yes.
So it does not address coming in from the back side.
And it won't under this plan.
Exactly. So what's the point? It eliminates and negates what we're trying to do.
I think they already have the materials to make this room. It's just whether or not we're going to make it ballistics as well. So at a future date, they would determine what to do.
Here's the
There's
problem
staff
with
behaviors
that.
that could be addressed. We do have a gate located in
Do
this
we?
hallway. Yeah, there's a gate that is not regularly used to cordon off this section of the building.
Okay.
And provides bathroom usage for this end of the building. Again, it's behaviors, and I think a lot of that would come out in that survey that was done a few years ago. And we do have offices that directly come off of this area, but, when a lot of that could be, controlled by staff in terms of behaviors of how often or what precautions were taken when we open this door up in the back.
The interior door with this box that enters the city hall is steel frame, right? To where you don't just.
Yeah, it'll be a knockdown frame and have a magnetic latch, magnetic strike, so it'll be operated by the cashier or by the administrative assistant.
Okay.
So there'd be like two cashier windows on either side.
Correct. Yeah.
It's just not a window.
One existing
It's
as
not
it
just
is,
a
and the
window.
other one would be a storefront, standard storefront window.
I think however you draw a security plan up, this is one of the first things that would be added would be this box right here. So as long as this box fits what we think would fit in with our future planning, and we don't have to reconfigure this box, that's my only concern. I'm for it, but as long as we feel comfortable with this this design stays and we design around it and work with it, I think it needs to be done.
All right, I'm looking for a motion.
Yeah.
So the increase is the ballistics material, which is the 20,000.
Correct.
Otherwise, you just have the framed
Framed and drywall finished product
entrance,
without
entrance
ballistics, yeah.
basically.
Still have, our typical security measures, like I said, it'd be an electric strike door that, you just couldn't walk through.
I move to move forward with the proposed increase for ballistics material for our little room.
You got to put the dollar number in there, please.
I actually didn't hear the end of your motion. Did you put the dollar amount in there?
21,000 for $21,000.
Well, it's not to exceed 21,000, right?
Is that clean enough for you?
No, I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I apologize.
It would be,
I move to move forward with the proposed increase of not to exceed $21,000 for ballistic material for the proposed room.
Motion.
Second.
Second. Further discussion.
I am not for this. Just letting you all know. I honestly think city staff needs to sit down and work on a security master plan. This
I
is,
could probably vote for it if I heard what the motion was.
And the motion was to include the ballistics glass not to exceed $21,000 in the entryway remodel.
Okay.
Right? And we have a second?
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
nay.
Motion passes 5-1.
Thank you.
Okay, we have,
or could I get you to do number 3 last
what's that?
on the executive
Trying
session?
to skip out on some more of my
more.
executive sessions. Okay, we're going to go into 1. Let's see here. 4. It's just that one that you're recusing yourself from 3?
Yeah, number 3.
Okay, so we're going to go into 4. I'm going to read 4 executive sessions here. 16.1, potential land sale parcel, pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A7, potential land sale parcel 80114003M and 80006019. 16.2, pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A7, potential land sale of parcel R0352764. Executive session 4, pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A4, Republic Service Contract and Recycling.
I move we go to all 4 executive sessions consecutively.
You read 3.
He only read 3.
Now, I'm going to add one. Thought we had 4.
We have 4, but Councilor Cormier is recusing him. We have 4, but Councilor Cormier is recusing himself from item 3.
So we don't need to come back out to vote again. We can just throw him out of that.
Exactly. Do the others first and then kick me out. That's right.
Okay, so I'm going to read that one too then. 16.3, executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03, city manager application, Darren Caldwell. You move to enter all 4.
I move we go into executive sessions 1, 2, 4, and 3 in that order.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed with those members present.